Hey, this is Nick and Gage with Connect Lax, here today to speak to you about the unsung heroes of the recruiting process, parents. This one goes out to you. So whenever I speak to parents about the recruiting process, a slew of questions always come up about what their role should be. So today I'm going to talk to you about a couple quick do's and don'ts during the recruiting process that I've gathered from the 50 plus college coach interviews I've done and also ongoing conversations I have with college coaches.
Well, and this is also based on all the recruiting coach conversations you have with parents, understanding kind of what their needs and what their questions are about the process.
Right, exactly.
So, there's a lot of information out there, and it's not always clear, and maybe there's no single right answer as far as what level of activity the parent should have in the player's recruitment.
Right.
When you talk about that.
So high level, just continue to be that supportive, motivating parent. And remember that college coaches want to be dealing mainly with the player and not the parent, because that's who we're going to be spending the next 4 years with.
So are you trying to say that parents should be hands-off and let the player navigate the process by themselves?
Yeah, on the contrary, parents should be educating themselves as much as possible. So that means either, talking to the club coaches about what they should be doing, reading interviews with college coaches. We do some college coach interviews we have published. You can see them on the website.
We talk about how best to get on the coach's radar.
Right, exactly.
Coaches like to be contacted different ways, so kind of understanding how they want to engage with you and learn about the player's game is important.
Right, exactly. And then also speaking to other parents who you may know whose kids who've recently gone through the recruiting process. So this does not mean writing emails for your player or calling the college coach and dictating, where you want your son or daughter to go to school, because in the end that's really going to hurt them. So it's crucial that the college coach and your son or daughter interact most, because that way it's going to determine and ensure that the school is the right fit for both of them.
Yeah, and so, it's no secret that most people don't like helicopter parents, and that's especially true for college coaches. But, there is a role for parents to play. It's very important, and I think it's most important to understand where parents should step in.
Right, exactly. There is a very important place where parents need to come and step into the process, and that's usually when dealing with finances or other adult conversations that need to be had.
And that's a really important conversation to have with your son or daughter early in the conversation, because you want to be candid when you're talking to college coaches,
right.
And you need to have an understanding of the scholarship reality, and we have different videos that get into that. We also have a free recruiting guide that talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you're focusing your efforts on schools that are a financial fit, so that you're not wasting your time or college coach's time.
Right. And the less obvious places are continuing to motivate your son or daughter and making sure that you're understanding their needs and understanding, what's going to help them be most successful. So, understanding the class size of the place that, that your son or daughter works best in, and then, closest to home. Do they need to get home on the weekends, or, they find being halfway across the country? It's very tempting to hijack the entire process with the fear that your son or daughter is going to make the wrong decision, but at the end of the day, that's only going to hurt them, and make the process much more stressful for them. So, it's important to think of yourself as a Yoda of the recruiting process. A sage, someone that your son or daughter can look to in times when they're unsure. Don't be a Darth Vader, like creeping over them and dictating their every thought, because again, it's really going to hurt them at the end of the day.
Well, the other thing is you want to make an environment where your son or daughter feels comfortable being honest about what they want. I mean, there's a lot of Northeast players that want to go south for college. They're done with the New York winters or Northeast winters, and they want to do something different, and that's not a crime. Obviously, you want to find the right institution, but if that's a preference, don't tuck it away. If it matters to the player, then consider it along with all the other, criteria that you're considering. But don't create an environment where they're not comfortable telling you what they're looking for and what they really want to get out of a college experience,
right,
including lacrosse, but also other parts of the academic and campus feel. So
exactly, very important.
It sounds like parents should kind of maintain a delicate balance, and I think that that's what's really important. Do coaches really care about the parents or the whole family, or is it really only about the player?
Right, so it might sound like I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth, but all coaches are recruiting parents as much as the player, because the player,
they don't want to admit it, but
it's a package deal, basically. Right, exactly. So they're recruiting the whole family, and with that said, you know, you need to be on your best behavior. You know, it might sound like you're back in elementary school or something, but, you know, you being that parent on the sideline screaming at the refs, or even worse, screaming at the coaches, that's going to get back to the college coaches, because either the club coach is going to talk about it, or, you know, if another player from your team goes there a year ahead of your son or daughter, then they're going to be like, wow, that parent's crazy. We don't want them here. So make sure you're on your best behavior, because your misconduct could end up really hurting your son or daughter's chances at their dream school. So we know you love your son and daughter and you want the best for them, and so do we. So with that, you know, make sure you check out our other videos about recruiting process to really help you through there. And we wish you guys the best of luck.
You know, when it comes to recruiting, knowledge is power. So the more that you know, the more comfortable your family and your son or daughter is going to be navigating the process.
Exactly.
So again, best of luck, and thanks for listening.
Thanks.